Hey, I'm Stephen Glosser.
And I'm Megan Pikert.
Welcome to the Going Somewhere podcast,
A podcast for anyone who finds themselves in the ambiguous adventure of young adulthood.
a season that's marked by uncertainty, change, love, heartbreak, and a whole lot of big decisions.
Join us for some real conversations as we dig into what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in this beautiful yet complicated season of life.
We're so glad you're here, and we'd love to have you join our little Going Somewhere podcast community. Follow us on Instagram at goingsomewhere.podcast and join the conversation.
We're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together.
Thanks for listening. Let's jump into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to this episode of the Going Somewhere podcast. How are you doing, Megan?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm excited to talk about what we're talking about today. Wherever you're listening from, it's most likely the holiday season, which is super exciting and lots of fun stuff going on. What are your plans over the holidays? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, we are trying to hit all the family. So we are going to my grandma's right on Christmas Day, I think. And then we are zooming up to my sister's the next day, 8 a.m. because the next day, 28th, is my dad's birthday. So
fun.
Celebrating his birthday in the morning and Christmas in the afternoon.
Does he enjoy having his birthday close to Christmas?
No, not at all. Yeah, we were just talking about it over Thanksgiving. It's a little bit rough for him, he said. So he's like, everyone always reschedules Christmas if it snows or whatever.
Yeah.
We get together again in January, but no one ever reschedules his birthday party. And so
sad.
It's so sad. So we said this year we'll give him the morning of Christmas on his birthday. We'll celebrate his birthday, and then the afternoon. So we told him at noon it transitions to Christmas and it's no longer your birthday, and we will now celebrate that.
So soak up your few hours.
Yep, you got like 4 hours with the family and then it's over. So
it's not about you anymore, Dad.
Yep, exactly. What's your
awesome.
plans for Christmas?
Working at a church is great. We have Christmas Eve services, which is super exciting. And so be a part of that. And then we'll go to Taylor's parents' place in Fergus Falls. And so we'll do that. And then we'll go to Bismarck, I believe, on the 26th. So for a few days to see my family. And so it's fun. My brother and sister-in-law and nephew will be there. And we were just with them for Thanksgiving. And they just came for some Bison basketball action or football action. So it's been fun. We've gotten a lot of time with family. And so it's just really fun as the kids get older, like to have more cousin time and more grandpa and grandma time. So we're pumped. Do you guys have any like fun family traditions that you're looking forward to?
Yeah. My favorite tradition, and actually, unfortunately, this is the first year we didn't do it, which is so sad.
Oh, no.
But every year we always got a real Christmas tree on Black Friday. So
Where'd you get it from?
Jan's Tree Farm is the only place to get a tree, actually.
Jan is just standing with her arms crossed like, where are you?
I know. Jan looks forward to us every year. And also because my dad buys out her store. He needs new icicle lights. He needs new whatever.
Yeah.
And so, so we always have Thanksgiving, and then
Jan has to close permanently because your family didn't show up.
She's out of business, actually. Yeah. We used to always get a real tree, and then this year it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Everyone's at their spouses' families for the holidays, and we just didn't have time. And so my dad was like, well, if we don't get it today, we're probably not getting it. And it was like a shot in the heart. We're like, oh no. But it's okay.
Do you have a fake tree?
I have a fake tree in my apartment, but no, I don't think.
No tree,
which is
crazy.
So sad. I know. If we didn't go, we're just not having it. There's no other option. So it's unfortunate. It's a bummer, but hopefully next year we'll get back on track because it's my favorite tradition.
That's
we
awesome.
Just missed it this year.
That's awesome.
What do you guys got? Any fun things?
Well, yeah, we've got a couple. We've got, my mom. She makes the same cookies, and she only makes them this time of year. So there's certain cookies that she'll make throughout the year, but then there's the Christmas cookies, and she always wears this red Christmas sweater. It has a bear on it, and she claims she doesn't even try, but she's always wearing it when we get home, and it's awesome. And so we love that. As our kids have gotten older, we just did this recently, but when we decorate, that night we watch The Grinch, and so that's kind of the thing that we look forward to. We buy those little sugar cookies that they're just tiny. They're already like, they're so good though.
They're
And
superior.
you can eat 14 of them within
Yes.
minutes.
Yep.
We do those. And then at Taylor's Family, have you ever heard of the game LCR, or left, center, right?
Yeah, like with the quarters and stuff.
Well, yep. So it's like it's a dice game, and it's got these little chips. Well, the way that we play it, so you do it, and then you pass chips, and it's whoever has the last chips wins. But we're not into gambling, and this is not gambling, but my mother-in-law, she will buy like a bunch of $5 Starbucks gift cards.
Nice.
And then each round, the winner gets the Starbucks gift card. And so it gets pretty heated and competitive and fun. And so that's something that I look forward to and then we all load them onto our phone, like onto our apps right away. And, there's no mercy. It's just fun. So that's something I'm looking forward to. Do you guys have any like odd traditions though?
The only semi-weird thing we do, I don't think it's weird, but I think that's the whole point, is that your family's not supposed to think it's weird. But every Christmas Eve, my siblings and I send the scene from Elf. We don't watch the whole movie. We just send the one scene of Will Ferrell saying at 10 a.m., Santa's coming to town. And I don't know why.
Do you do it at 10 a.m.?
No. I mean, it's just like, it's continuously sent back and forth.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's just we laughed at it one year and cried and thought it was the funniest thing that a grown man is just screaming about Santa. And so now it's just kind of a joke, and whoever gets to it first to send the link on Christmas Eve, and then we all just watch it and we laugh. And that's the weirdest tradition I think we got.
Awesome.
So it's pretty chill. But you guys got any weird things?
No, I wouldn't say we have anything weird. The thing that I think is weird, but I think it's actually normal, is that the way we do gifts is we go youngest to oldest, and then the way it works at my house anyways is everybody opens one at a time. So like everybody watches each person. So it takes a long time. And with young squirrely kids, it just gets pretty difficult. And then we'll go to Taylor's family's house, where it's just kind of like a free for all, and it is way too chaotic, but it's more efficient. And so yeah, I don't know which one's the weird one there. I've asked other people and realized that they're both normal, but I would actually love to hear from people, because I think this is one of my favorite things to hear, is like, what are some traditions that maybe somebody thought was normal until they told somebody about it, and they're like, that is so weird. Like nobody does that. So if you have an odd family tradition or a really great one, we'd love to hear about it. You should send them our way. Go comment on Instagram at goingsomewhere.podcast. We would love to hear your fun traditions. We'll put up a little poll too, just to make it easy. So we'll do that. But I think coming into the holiday season, actually, there's one other question I have to get out there. What's your take on Hallmark movies, like the Christmas movies?
Okay. I feel like I'm going to get judged for this. My takeaway is that I love Hallmark movies, but I also very much understand that they are incredibly cheesy, and sometimes I can't finish them because I'm like, but they will be playing the entire day just in the background.
So you have an awareness of the stupidity?
Awareness. Yes.
Okay.
I'm well aware that what I'm watching is the most unrealistic thing.
Yeah. I just think it's so cliche. Like, it's just wild. Like, Taylor and I had the TV on and we weren't watching anything, but whatever, like a movie started playing in the background because it was just hovering over it or whatever. And I was literally saying what was going to happen, and it happened. And I've never seen it before, but I have seen it, because if you've seen one, you've seen them all. And shout out to my friend Andy Wentz. This is our argument that we have every year. We will send each other jabs because she's like major into Hallmark. She also grew up in Garrison, which is like a Hallmark town at Christmas. So she has a lot of nostalgia towards those things. But I just make fun of her all the time. You
know what you can do? I've heard of people doing this where they play bingo with Hallmark movies. Okay. So everyone makes a bingo board of predictions, and then you watch a Hallmark movie and you cross them out as they happen, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable. I feel like we did that like 2 years ago, and I can't remember if we got bingos, but like we got a lot of them on our cards. Maybe I did that with my roommates, I think, in college. It was really fun.
That sounds fun. New tradition. That's gonna be my new family tradition.
Nice.
That's awesome. But no, I think when we talk about the holidays, when we talk about Christmas, for a lot of people, for a lot of young adults, it is a time where you go back into an old environment where you're with family, and our family knows us unlike anybody else. You know, they've journeyed with us for the most time, at least 18 years. And they've seen your best, your worst, your good, your bad, your ugly. And sometimes it's hard to reconcile like the new things taking place in your life, whether that's spiritually or relationally. And then you kind of converge it all at Christmas, or you converge it all over the holidays where you're with family members you only see a couple times a year. And so I think it's an important conversation to have, is like, what does it look like to be home for the holidays? And how can we maximize that time? How can we remain healthy? How can we continue to follow Jesus? How can we honor God while still honoring our family and honoring our convictions? And all of those things kind of collide all at once over the holidays. So I'm excited to kind of dive into this conversation, just to talk about, hey, a lot of you who are listening are going home. For some of you, that sparks a lot of joy and excitement. And you're going home like, oh, I can't wait for this. I can't wait for that. I can't wait to see this person. And for a lot of other people, it's like a time of, oh no, you know, or you know that the tension is going to be there. You know that that person who, this is maybe the first Christmas without somebody, or this is the first Christmas that you have to go to your mom's house and your dad's house, and all those different factors. And so we just recognize that it's a time where there's a lot of emotions, a lot of attention, a lot of, you know, conflict. And so we want to speak directly to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's do it. I think within that, it's just also recognizing like what you're walking into. So to kind of kick it off, we're going to kind of go into, I think it's about 10 kind of tips, some key things that you can do as you go home for the holidays. But to kind of kick it off, we just want to kind of jar your memory and jar your own minds of like, what is it that you're walking into? So I think just take a moment and think about that, of like, what is it that you're walking into? Is it conflict? Is it just family dynamics that are difficult to navigate? Is it unresolved issues and tension? Has something happened over the last year that hasn't been resolved? Is there going to be pressure to conform to old ways and expectations? But take me back to like those first times for you, Megan, where you were, you know, new to your faith and God was becoming alive and real to you. And now you're going home to an environment that wasn't the case. Like college, wow, God's changing my life. Home, that wasn't how it was like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for me, you know, I've said this in different seasons of my life, but when you go through such transformation, you're going back to a familiar place, an entirely new person. Mm-hmm. And something that I really had to give myself grace for, and the people in my family grace for, was that no one else saw the change. Like, there was a huge transformation and a huge shift in just my moral compass, the way that I viewed life. And it's not my family's fault that they didn't see that. They just weren't in college with me every single day, right. You know? And so going back to an environment where you used to be a certain way or do certain things, I had to learn to give myself grace that I've never had to navigate this before. I've never had to try and do a quiet time while people are playing games in the living room, you know, right. Just things like that, where I never had to hold on to rhythms that were really healthy for me in an environment that wasn't used to that, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes for a lot of young adults, especially that are new to faith, and it's like this thing that you are in an environment which is conducive to faith growing. Like, it's cultivated around you, whether you're in college and you're in a college ministry or you're plugged into a church. And then you go into that environment where it's not like that. And a lot of people kind of fall on their faces and they go, what just happened? You know, mm-hmm. I thought I was different. I thought I had changed. But the reality is that it's not that you've changed. It's not that you've lost anything, but that new environment or that old environment kind of sparked things that you haven't had to deal with. You haven't had to come to grips with, like, man, yeah, I don't have that temptation where I'm at now. And then I go back to that place and it was like right in my face. And so for me, like, I grew up in a Christian family. My family, you know, church was a part of our rhythms and part of our traditions and all of those things. And my brother, actually, part of part of this for me is like my brother came back from Christmas. I remember his freshman year, like we were never very close, and he just treated me different. And he, like was more active with me and taking more interest in me and cared about me more. And I remember vividly him reading his Bible like over Christmas break. And not that he had never done that before, but I was like, that's crazy. A college guy is coming home and he's actually like taking his faith super seriously. And so I kind of had my eyes open because of my brother's actions at Christmas. And so then when I got to that point, you know, I think sometimes I took that for granted. Like my family knows Jesus. And so I would kind of revert back into old habits. It was just easy for me to kind of fall back into old relationships and friend patterns and thought patterns and all of those things. And so I kind of had to realize like, yeah, my family is loving, my family is kind, they love Jesus, but some of the things that even relationally had never been resolved were coming up louder and louder every time I would go home because I wasn't addressing them. So I think it's a variety of different places and spaces for people. And so, yeah, listener, what's the thing that you're most excited for? And I think what is the thing that you're most dreading? Like, what's the thing that you're staring at in the face going, oh no, this is coming around the corner?
Yeah. I think too with that question, those two questions of actually taking time, like maybe pause the podcast for a second and actually sit and reflect on what are you most nervous for and what are you excited for, and think through like, what are you excited for? Okay, how can I lean into that? How can I really be present where my feet are with the things that I'm excited for? And with what am I nervous for? What are the challenges? Really thinking through, okay, how am I going to navigate that when I'm home? I think there's so much power in how we prepare for it instead of being like, okay, I know this is going to happen and I'll just deal with it when it happens. But really thinking through, okay, what are the things I'm going to do, the way that I'm going to speak, the behavior and the action I'm going to take to make sure that I feel good in this and how I handled it, instead of sometimes having best intentions can sometimes still be no intention because you don't actually act on anything. And so instead of having any sort of regret when you leave your family for the holidays, how can you prepare yourself to be able to present your actions and your words in a positive way?
For sure. And I think the thing that I want everybody to know is that this holiday season can be a major win. And that might look different for different people. For some, you know, this might be the first time you ever demonstrate the change in your life. Like, I'm a new person, now I get to show my family. For others, it's like, I want to be bold and I actually want to tell my family about Jesus and what he's done in my life. For others, it's I want to have a hard conversation, or I want to reconcile a relationship. And for others, it's like, I just want to serve my family, and that I just want to help move the ball forward 1 foot by just showing them and leaving and vanishing. Poof, I'm gone. And they're like, whoa, why was he or she like that? Like, that was crazy. We tried to jab at, and they just responded in love. So whatever that looks like, I just want to encourage you to realize like this can be a win, and the win is different for all of us. And so let's jump into it. We've got about 10 tips. Some things that we've realized, some things that we want to share with you. And then at the very end, we're going to actually answer some questions that we've been asked about this topic. Hey everybody, we want to tell you about something really exciting happening here in Fargo, North Dakota. We've got Rhythm Conference 2025 coming up February 7th and 8th. And this is a 2-day gathering that is totally designed for you, young adults. This is an opportunity for you to make some friends, to grow in your relationship with God, and really be stretched as we make a difference in this world.
Yeah, we are so excited for all of us to be able to gather together in community, spend time with Jesus, and with our after parties, breakouts, guest speaker, Pastor Kirk Graham from River Valley Church. It's going to be an awesome time. Yeah,
we'd love to have you join us. We've got a seat saved for you. All you got to do is go to rhythmconf.com to reserve your seat, to register today. Price is only $50 for the whole weekend. You get everything. You get a meal. It's going to be an awesome time, but the price goes up December 31st. So get your tickets while they're hot. We'll see you at RhythmConf 2025. The first kind of tip that we want to share is to serve your family, to serve the people that you are going to be around. Can you add to this one, Megan?
Yeah, I think this is my favorite. I had a roommate in college that challenged me in this way. That she was just like, Megan, when you go home for Christmas, I want to challenge you. There will not be a dish in the sink. And I was like, on it. I got this. And so, but she was explaining to me without me realizing that love meets a need. A love sees a need and meets a need. And so she was just like, yep, there won't be a dish in the sink. You're going to do the things that no one else wants to do. No one else wants to wash the 18 huge pots and pans that everyone used, and like everyone used a fork. So there's 20 different forks in the sink, just all that stuff that is such a practical way to serve, and doing it with joy and with gladness. Because I think sometimes we can serve, but we're really just serving, we're really just doing the chore that someone asked us to do, but to have joy with it. And so my brother and I, Matt, we take this up. We do the dishes at our holidays. And so he washes, I dry, and we blast music, and it's so fun. And we look forward to it now, which is really fun. And then same, like, I'm going to be the one that's like, immediately I walk through the door and I don't go sit on the couch. I go ask, what do you need help with? How can I help? What can I do? I'm asking before I get home, like, is there anything you need from the store? Just trying to find ways to be the need or meet the need that someone has over the holidays has been really impactful for our family, and has made it actually really fun to serve them in that way. So
That's awesome. I feel like for me, I've struggled with this one. And
you don't do the dishes.
I mean, I do, but I complain. And so, or I especially used to. And so, sorry, Mom. But no, I think this is so big though, regardless of, of where your family's at. Because there's some people that the reference point is they don't know Jesus, and this is the greatest way to demonstrate him. But for others, it's just like loving your family and for everybody. And so I think, it's finding those little ways to do that. And Mark 10:45 is Jesus didn't come, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. I think that posture that Jesus had is the posture that we can take on. He came to serve. Like, that was his purpose entering the world. And so our purpose can be the same, to serve those around us. I think another kind of aspect of serving is doing the things that your family members enjoy. And so, I'm not talking about like sinful things they enjoy, but doing the things that they enjoy, even if you don't. So if your family loves doing puzzles and you think they're boring, do the puzzle. That's a way to serve. Or I know one thing that has been challenging in my family is like my mom loves playing games. And so, we're not all like the biggest game players, but that is a way to serve my mom, is by sitting down with her and playing one of the games that she enjoys. So I think finding the ways that you can serve your family, whether that's, doing the chores, taking out the garbage, doing it all before you're asked, or just doing the things that bring them joy and coming alongside them in that, I think is a great way to serve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that just made me laugh. We're big game people in my family. And there's games that people love and games that people don't want to play, but we play them every year. So we're back around the kitchen table every year because that's what our family's playing, and we want to be present. And it's just important to be where your feet are too. If you're going to be home, then be home, be with them, do what they're doing,
For sure. Number 2 is to remain consistent with your rhythms and to have a spiritual plan going home. I think that's one of those things that not even necessarily the home environment, but just disrupting your routines, your rhythms, your natural environment can just kind of throw everything into disarray. And so I remember being in college, for instance, and having like my life, my freshman year, God was just turning me upside down. So reading my Bible, prayer, doing those things was just quite natural because I was so excited. And then I remember getting home for that Christmas break, and that was so difficult for me. Like my alarm would go off and I would sleep in, and, there was things happening in the morning. So I'd just jump into the activities. And it was like those things that for 3-4 months had become so natural and normal, were like all of a sudden challenged. And so I remember the second time I went home, it was like, no, I need to have a plan for what this is going to look like. I need to remain consistent, and it might look different than it did in college, but I'm going to create those spaces, those environments. I'm going to cultivate that. Even if that's not what's around me, I'm going to cultivate that so I can stay true to those rhythms. So going home with a Bible reading plan. Like, hey, this is what I'm going to read over break, or bringing a book or two home. Like, I'm going to read this book over Christmas break so it helps me challenge myself and continue to grow my faith. What are some of the things that you would encourage people to do?
Yeah, I think play to your strengths a little bit. So if you're not a morning person, you're not going to be a morning person at break. And so don't be like, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. on break and that's when I'm going to do my quiet time. Like, set yourself up for success and,
For sure.
you know, actually set realistic goals for
Yep.
yourself. And also just think through, what are your family's rhythms, you know? And so if your family stays up late, they're playing games, they're watching a movie together at night, then adjust your schedule accordingly. I have a rhythm in my family. It's kind of a joke, but people in my family say that they can tell time based off of looking at me when it gets late at night. When it hits 10 p.m., my eyes glaze over. And it's been like this my whole life. I'm just not a night person. I like my sleep. And so they're usually like, oh, it must be like 10 o'clock. Megan's
so
going to
funny.
just like sneak away. And it's usually pretty spot on, like 9:55. And so play to your strengths. And so that was usually my cue of, okay, I'm tired anyway. And so I would just wait and do my time with the Lord at the end of my day, because I knew I'm probably going to leave before the party's over. And then I'm going to get 30 minutes to an hour of just, okay, time alone to reset for the evening as well. But yeah, a big thing that I like to do over break is to read books. Sometimes it can be intimidating if your family doesn't know the Lord to sit in your living room and read your Bible in front of everyone, and people that aren't familiar with that or do the same thing are going to look at that and be like, what are you doing? Or like, can we talk to you? Like, what's going on? But I found that reading a book creates a much different perspective, and it's still helping me stay learning something. I love to read, so it helps me still keep in that habit of that rhythm. But I'm still able to be in the room, be engaged, but not feel like I need to get away and like spend time with the Lord and pray and read my Bible, and make people feel uncomfortable, because that's not what we're trying to do either. So
Yeah, and I think it invites somebody into it too, because they can grab a book and sit with you, even if it is your Bible. And I think that also invites the conversations, or it invites the curiosity too. Like, we're not doing it to be recognized, but those habits, those rhythms, oftentimes spark conversations, because they're like, "That's not normal." You know, she didn't used to do that, and that was me and my brother. It was like, he's doing that, and I knew all about it, but to see him do it was actually like really challenging to me. And so I think those things can spark those curiosities of like, I wonder why, and can oftentimes spark those conversations too. The third tip is to stay in touch with community. Really, that point of accountability is a big deal, because I remember, again, that first Christmas, it was just hard. I went from having like a small group of 15 guys that were like pouring into me, and we had these touch points throughout the week. I had Chi Alpha every Thursday night. I had church on Sundays. I had all of this community, and then all of a sudden, just poof, it was gone, you know? And from that point on, like when I started leading a small group, one of the things that I did was I would in our group in the weeks leading up to it, we would talk about our plan, and we would create a plan together. So oftentimes what we would do is we would either do a Bible reading plan together. So on the YouVersion app, we would all join a group, and then you can write notes in it. And it was a way to not only have accountability, but it could kind of spark that conversation throughout. So it's just a text throughout that just said, hey, what did you get out of it today? Or how can I be praying for you? And just continuing to maintain that community and that accountability was a big deal. And I remember just even having that in my mind of like, hey, I have 10 other guys that are doing the same thing. And so I can remain true to that and true to them while being in a different place. And it was really helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. And I think too, along with that, is creating community within your family too.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think we don't see our family as people that can keep us accountable all the time, just if they don't have the same rhythms as you. And so something that my brother Matt and I have tried to get in the habit of doing is when we go home, we try to go to a coffee shop one morning and we'll do our quiet time there. But we've had it a few times where we've like invited my sister, and she'll bring her Bible, or she'll bring a book to read, or other people. And it's created like community at home of, hey, like either let's do this rhythm together, or let's just have intentional conversation. Like, how
Right.
are you? How is it going? And actually moving beyond, how's your job? Did you graduate college? You know, what's your next season of life? But asking like the deeper questions with your family, and looking to them as a sense of community too, I think is really fun.
I heard this quote many years ago: is change of place plus change of pace equals change of perspective. And I think it was Mark Batterson, and it was, the idea is like retreats, and the idea is to create that change of place and get out of your normal rhythms. But also sometimes even with the family things, like you were just saying, doing it at home and trying to fight through all the noise to have the deeper conversation, or to really encourage that, is difficult. But creating, like you just said, going to a coffee shop and just getting out of that normal space, slowing down a little bit, it is way easier to kind of have that conversation that is going to be really awkward at home, in a coffee shop, where it's just like, hey, we're in a different environment, and it gives us a new space to have a new conversation. So that's a really good idea in general. But the fourth thing is to be prepared. So this tip is, when you're going home for the holidays, to be prepared. So what we mean is not only having a plan of like, hey, this is what I can do, this is the rhythm that I can establish, but also recognizing the common tripwires that have tripped you up in the past. So recognizing whether it's old sin patterns, whether it's relational tension and relational patterns, and doing those things, those common temptations, and just being prepared for those. If an old relationship spikes up every time you go home because you hang out with this person and you're like, I'm done, it's no good, but you go home and then you send the text and you meet up late at night, like the chances are you're going to boomerang right back to that old way of life. Or with the relationships, like if you know that these conversations, when they come up, it leads to tension, you might not be able to avoid the conversation, but you can be prepared. And so as that conversation goes, you can start to throw water on it, and you can try to change the subject. You can remove yourself gently and say, hey, I'm going to run up and do this thing, or I'm going to find another family member, or whatever. But just knowing those things helps you kind of stay out of the hot water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really good. I think with that, I think for me at least, places hold memory for me. Mm-hmm. So I feel a certain way when I'm turning left onto my dad's road.
Wow,
I feel a certain way when I'm driving down the dirt road to my mom's ranch growing up. Like there's emotions and things that come back that you don't have to deal with when they're not in your face every day. So whether that's like pure excitement of I can't wait to be home and get inside, or that's like, ooh, like what am I going to walk into? I think for me, just realizing that even the way that my childhood room feels is a certain way.
Yeah.
And so if you were a potential like tripwire for you maybe is when you were a teenager, you spent a lot of time in your room, like you just naturally, as teenagers, we wanted to silo ourselves and not be involved as much. And so maybe that is a unintentional habit that you've created in your life, is that, oh, I'm home and I usually stay in my room, so I'm just going to stay in my room. So just being aware of how spaces make you feel. And something that I do when I go home, I try to at least, is just to do a quick prayer over my room. And so that has really helped me. And it's super fast. It's like, Lord, you are here. You're welcome here. I want to meet with you here. And I pray that your name would be glorified in this space. And amen. Like that, it's
right.
super simple. And it's literally as I'm taking my bags off and putting them in, and then I'm out. Like no one has to know. But what it's allowed is to shift from a place of, maybe I'm insecure, maybe I'm going back to old feelings, or just uncertainty, to be like, nope, when I'm here, I'm in the presence of God no matter where I go, because I carry him with me. And so just remembering that, allowing your room or wherever it is to be just a sanctuary for you too, and to not be necessarily what it's always been in the past.
That's good. I think too, like some of those things, whether it's habits that you just know, hey, family does this at Christmas, whether it's, drinking, and that's a tripwire for you, and you're at a place where like, no, I don't want that in my life. Sometimes if you just get into that environment and then it starts happening, it's really hard either to resist giving into that, or it's hard to have that conversation in that moment. So being prepared sometimes just means like when you get home, sitting down with your family, just being like, hey, like, I know this is a part of tradition. This is part of Christmas. I'm not here to say do this and don't do this, which is going to be another one of our points here soon. But I'm just not going to participate. So if you guys can just honor that, like, I love you guys. I'm here. You know, there's so many other things that we do together. But for this, I'm going to either sit this out, or I'm just going to do something else, or I'm going to make plans that night, or whatever you feel like is the best way to engage to honor your family. But I think having those conversations, not in the heat of the moment when it's like happening and they're like, what are you doing? You know, and they start judging you and throwing jabs at you and it creates awkward tension. It's getting ahead of that. And just so when that all comes up, it's just like, or if it doesn't come up, then it might not, you know, because it's like, hey, yeah, we don't have to do that. If you're uncomfortable with that, we don't have to, or whatever the case is. Everybody's family is different. But I think being prepared, at least internally, allows you to start at a better spot than being caught off guard by things that you don't need to be. Mm. Our next point is kind of in regards to that, but don't put your convictions on others. And I think this is probably the one, I am sorry, mom and dad, that I've struggled with the most, is because the reality is that God was doing crazy things in my life in that college season of life, that the way I thought was changing, the way that I behaved was changing. And so, and this is not even just my parents or my family, but it was even my friends. So I would go home and I would be kind of like the police of like, don't do this. This is bad, you know? And I just remember like forcing my convictions on everybody else. And I think there's a way to live your convictions in a loving way that does not either shame or condemn or make somebody feel guilty for something that they don't feel. Like with my friends, the reality was, and something that I really want everybody to hear is that you can't expect someone who doesn't know Jesus to act like Jesus. And I remember going to my high school friends and be like, guys, don't do this. This is stupid. Like, why are, you know, but the reality is that they didn't have Jesus in their life to help them understand what was right and wrong, and help them understand that there's a better way. Like, he is the way. It's not the behavior modification. And so that's one thing I challenge every believer that's listening to this podcast. Don't force your convictions on others. It will drive wedges. It will push people away. And there's a way to live out your convictions, to love people well, to serve people well, that actually invites them to see something in you. But when you force your convictions on other people and you become the morality police, it's like the quickest way to shut it down, not only for that day, but sometimes for months, for years, because they see you in a totally different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that made me think, you know, I don't think I'm a very vocal person when I go home. So I'm not telling you right or wrong. I'm not policing, like you said, but I also think that there is you can swing so far the other way to you shut down. Yeah. And you no longer contribute. And there's just like something different about you that actually what you're trying to do, and what I this is what I fall into, is what I'm trying to do is not participate into, you know, like, I don't want to do that, but I'm not vocalizing any of that. And what it actually has created in my family sometimes is like this tension of why, like, what's going on? Is she mad? Is she upset? You know, why isn't she participating? And I'm not like willing to vocalize. And it was out of just a place of, I don't want to like make anyone feel uncomfortable. But I think I ended up doing the opposite, where I actually ended up making people feel uncomfortable because I was trying to, you know, live a certain way, but I wasn't communicating what was happening. And so I just try and walk the line, try and walk the tension a little bit of don't police, but also don't shut down, you know, still have fun, still, like, you know, be who God's called you to be, and be where your feet are, and don't be too scared to not be where everyone else is, you know. Does that make sense?
For sure. I think so. I think there's just those levels of it where, you know, 2 Corinthians, I believe it's 5:17, it talks about we're a new creation. The old is gone and the new has come. Like, in Christ, the beautiful thing is that he makes us into a new creation altogether. And so the fact of the matter is a new creation is going back to old environments, to old relationships, to old people. And they don't have a frame of reference for that, you know? And so I think it's reminding yourself that the fact of the matter is that I am a new creation, but the other fact of the matter is that they see me as little Megan, you know, they see me as little Steven who does this and that. And I think that juxtaposition of like both of those are true in the same time is kind of where some of that tension can come. One of the questions that was asked most often when we were kind of prepping for this was, how do I share my faith with my family? And I think, and this is the tip that I want to give, is be prepared to share your story. I think there's going to be opportunities to just share your faith and just say, hey, this is what I believe. Can I tell you about Jesus? I think recognizing that the holiday of Christmas is about Jesus and personally remembering that, but then also taking that opportunity of like incorporating that into your family. I wouldn't say, you know, your job is to hijack it and be like, no Santa Claus this year, it's Jesus only. But I think there's an opportunity to ask questions and to say, hey, like, would you guys mind if we read part of the Christmas story and just kind of remind ourselves what the true meaning of Christmas is? But I love 1 Peter 5:16. It says, always be prepared to give an answer or to give a reason for the hope that you have, and do so with gentleness and respect. I think that's like my go-to when it comes to sharing my story, sharing my faith, is when your life looks different, when you act different, it demands questions. Like it always causes people to ask why, and be ready to share that. If somebody says like, hey, why didn't you get mad at Dad when he said that to you? That's a great opportunity to say, honestly, I wanted to, but I just realized that like I've done so many things and I just want to extend grace like Jesus has extended to me. Or when your friends are like, hey, why don't you want to come out with us anymore? Or why don't you want to do this thing anymore? You can share like, hey, I know that we used to do that and it was a lot of fun for us, but I've realized that I found a lot of wholeness and peace in this new way of life. Can I tell you more about it? And I just think there's non-cheesy, but really beneficial and effective ways to start to share your faith and to start to share your story of just like, hey, you know, how was college? You could say, oh, college stinks, you know, like this class is hard, this teacher stinks, you know, but no, you can be like, man, I met some people and they brought me to this thing and it's been the best part of college. And I'm like, well, what's it called? You know, well, Chi Alpha or this church called Northview or whatever. And then they're like, well, what made it so great? And you're able to share what made it so great. And they're not going to, a testimony beats an argument every time, because they're like, well, I can't argue with what's happening to you.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. That reminds me, I think my brother is someone who does that extremely well. Of when he was in college for 5 years, very, very involved with Chi Alpha and lived and breathed Jesus and still does. But like people would ask him about how college was, and rarely was his first answer anything about his major. It was always like, oh my gosh, I'm leading a small group right now and I have 15 guys and they're amazing. Or it was like, I attend this Christian community on my campus, and it was just like incredible to watch him. And then it was like 30 minutes into the conversation, someone would be like, what are you going to school for again? And then it was like, oh, here's the original question, you know?
Right.
But he was just like, no, this is the most important thing. And it shared it with such joy that I would just like watch from across the room of like, how are you doing that, you know? But he was just like, no, this is in the sense of like, this is the most important thing in my life, and so this is what's going to come out of my mouth first, and I'll get to the other stuff second, but this is really what's been impacting me in my life right now. It was really awesome, and he still does it today too. But
well, and I think you can probably speak to this, but I think the power of it is also when the behavior and the life itself matches that, you know? Because if you are saying those things and you're talking about it, but you're still, you know, avoiding helping whenever possible, you're talking back to your parents, you're, you know, dishonoring to them, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what you say if you're not living it. It has to go together.
Mm-hmm. So
the last couple here that we want to share, and then we do have a couple questions we do want to address head on. One is to set boundaries with love. Sometimes and we kind of spoke to this, the be prepared, point, but we have to adjust expectations. And sometimes that means we have to set boundaries that we are going to do a certain thing, or we're not going to do a certain thing, or, maybe it's sometimes the boundary is, I know in the past I've come home for a week at Christmas, but honestly, like there's some things at home that I want to be back for with friends that I've made, or like some families, New Year's is a big deal, but then you create friendships and you're like, I want to be with them on New Year's too. And so having those conversations with love, communicating, it's not that I don't want to be with you, but I'm changing, our worlds are changing. And sometimes that was one of the questions, was like, how do you navigate that when your family has a tradition that you can't make anymore, or that you want to create your own traditions if you have young kids, like I'm in the season, that those conversations can be really hard because it's disruptive, but sometimes it's the way that you have those conversations that's so important. Another key here is to practice forgiveness. And you can read a lot of scripture. 1 Corinthians 3:13 speaks to it as well, but to practice forgiveness, because there's going to be 1,000 reasons to forgive somebody over the holidays. Mm-hmm. And so to make it like an effort, like, hey, I'm going home for Christmas. I'm going to have fun. We're going to open presents. We're going to do all this, but I'm also going to practice forgiveness. Like this is going to be one of my missions is like every time somebody wrongs me, it's an opportunity. And, I think it's a great opportunity to grow in your faith, to stretch in your faith, and to continue moving forward. Mm-hmm. And our last one that we want to share is, if you don't have a church, to find a church and invite somebody to come with you. So if this is new, like if church and faith is not the norm in your family, one of the things that you can do is you can still make that a priority. You can say, hey, I'm going to find a church on Sunday. It's just an hour and a half or an hour, but I would love if anybody wanted to come with me. We could sit together. We can grab a coffee on our way or whatever. And it could be a new tradition that started. It could create new curiosities. And so I just think that's a really great thing that you can do too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to add one thing on the practicing forgiveness. I think a lot of times we can go home expecting someone else to start the conversation and being like, oh, like as the adults, they should, like, right. I'm the kid, whatever. I'm the younger sibling. I don't want to bring it up. It shouldn't have to be me. I'm not in the wrong. And so I just want to encourage you, like a way to practice forgiveness is forgiveness actually has nothing to do with the other person. It's entirely internal between you and the Lord, and letting things go and trusting in God to bring redemption. And so my encouragement is for you to initiate any conversation that you feel like you need to have. We've had this in my family where it's like, hey, can I take 10 minutes? Can we go to the garage? And we start it by saying, hey, I'm sorry that this relationship isn't what we want it to be, or I haven't treated you kindly after this happened. Will you forgive me? And I think that's a crucial part of forgiveness too, is asking like, will you forgive me? And this could be a whole nother episode on crucial conversations. Sure. So I'll leave it at that. But just my encouragement is, if there is forgiveness that needs to be had in your family, be bold. Like don't shy away from it and lean into it.
Absolutely. I think that's huge, to be the initiator in those things and in those conversations. We do have a couple questions that we want to have time to answer here. One of them is how to handle criticism for faith or life choices. So I think this comes from, because of your faith, because of something that you're different, that change has taken place, your family recognizes it. I think sometimes it's common for somebody to be like almost offended by those choices. And I think you can speak to that a little bit. So what's your experience like that, or how would you handle that?
Yeah, I think for me, I'll preface by I do not do this well all the time. And so I have a lot of regrets, but I've learned a lot too of how I would handle things different in the future. But my first encouragement is to just practice having an unoffendable spirit. And so when you go home, praying before you get there that I'm just not going to be offended by what's spoken today. I have my identity rooted. I trust in what God is calling me to do, what he's asked me to do, and what he's given me to steward. And so I'm just going to choose to not be offended. I can be hurt, and that's okay. But I'm going to choose to not take it personally, and to know that they don't live in the same lifestyle that I do. And then my other encouragement is sometimes people just don't understand the positives of how your life has changed. And so share the positives. When someone asks about your life, don't just say, oh, my job's going well, but really lean in. Like, this is an opportunity. Someone's asking about your life. And so you have the opportunity to paint that in a positive light, to not be unauthentic, but to be authentic in a really beautiful way of, hey, I'm going to tell you exactly why I love my job. Like, why do I love doing what I get to do? Why do I love my coworkers or the people around me that I get to work with every day? Like, that is countercultural to
Right.
today. Like, everyone else is going to be sitting around the table sharing about their boss that just gets on their nerves or didn't give them a big enough bonus. And you can be different in a loving way, that I don't think people will criticize, because you're coming off in a positive way, at least for me too. And then just my last encouragement with handling criticism is just remembering for yourself that power of life and death is in the tongue. And so the way that you respond to anything is really important. And so being slow to speak and quick to listen to them, you don't have to defend yourself, I think
Yeah.
is huge. Is you don't have to engage in a conversation. You can shut it down in love in a really powerful way by just saying, by either changing it, by reframing maybe their perspective on something of, I don't know why you're doing that, or I work at a church. So sometimes the criticism I get, for better or for worse, is, why do you always work on Sundays? You're always leaving on Saturday afternoon. And something that I'm always quick to say is, I work on Sundays because no one else does. And this is an opportunity every week I get to pour into people. And so just reframing that. And I think it also gives you a perspective of what you get to do as well. But yeah, I think it's just huge to be able to reframe conversations, to not have to defend yourself, but hear what they're saying and take it and listen. But sometimes it's also better to maybe just change the topic
Right.
too. So
For sure. No, that's really good. I think just that again, that idea of expecting it, like it's gonna be different, because even like the choices that you make in their framework, the thing that they're doing is the best way to live life, and maybe they are suppressing the negative sides of it, but you're able to express, like, this is what it's like to not have that, or to have the inverse of that. Like, there is so many positives to it, whether that's how you spend your time, what you do for fun, all of those things. The last question we're going to handle today is, how can I be a peacemaker in relational tension? I think this comes from a lot of people that that go into these home situations, and peace is kind of the farthest thing from the reality of home. Whether that's external, and it's like you come from a family that's loud and argumentative and opinionated, and there's always fights. Somebody leaves before dinner's done. You're like, how do I go into that environment? But also like the internal side of peace too. It's just, there's tension. There's years and years of history. There's hurts. There's pains. How do you be a peacemaker? And I think that is the call for every follower of Jesus, is to bring peace where we go. And I think on the one hand, like, peace is a person, it's Jesus. It's not a feeling. It's not a place. It's a person. And so staying close to him and recognizing that the life of a follower of Jesus is living our lives as if we were him. So I think when you think of that relational tension, the blow-ups and stuff, it's recognizing that you have a role in that, and that you can remove yourself from that. I know in Romans 12:18, it says, as long as it depends on you, remain at peace with everyone. I just love that it just says it straight up. Like, as long as it depends on you, remain at peace. Don't be the problem. Don't be the peace ruiner. Don't be the person that sparks the chaos, or sparks the argumentative nature. And that's sometimes by shoving our convictions on people. Sometimes that's by returning back to old ways of dishonoring our parents. But remain at peace as much as it depends on you. And then recognize that you have the power through Jesus to invite people into peace, and to be somebody that calms things down, to divert conversations, to grab your sibling and say, hey, do you just want to go on a walk for a little bit? I know it's cold out, but to do something to remove from the situation, to let it calm down. Anything to add to that?
no, I think you nailed it.
Cool. Well, hey, I know we gave a lot today, but I think everybody has a different perspective on this. And so as you are driving, listening to this, or as you are thinking about this, this is a great episode to listen to on your drive home. So if that was you, kudos. I hope you had a great drive. But I think there's a lot of points that we could go over, but I think there's a couple keys that I want to just touch on as we close. I think some of the keys here are love, to love really well, to love tangibly, to love with our words, to love with our actions, grace, to extend grace, but also to give yourself grace. You're not perfect, and that's not the goal. And so give yourself grace when you don't react the way you want to, and give your family grace when they are your family and when they act as if they don't know Jesus when they don't, or whatever the case is. Intentionality is really going out of your way to be intentional in your behaviors, in your patterns, in your rhythms, and all of those things. And then patience. Just be patient. Be patient with people, but be also patient with the process. God's working in hearts. This might be a time where you get to water, or you might get to plant some seeds. This is the first time that you're sharing your faith. This is the first time that you're different. This is the first time that you have a relationship with Jesus and you get to plant those seeds. This might be a watering season where you get to go home. And the goal of Christmas is to just sprinkle a little water on things that are already planted. That water looks like continuing to share things, but also it looks like that's serving and loving. And just be patient, that God makes it grow. And I think that's the beauty of it. Anything you would add?
Yeah, I think, just to recap some of our points that I think are really helpful is outserve your family. Do everything you can to be annoying in the way that you serve, and don't let anyone else.
It's the best kind of annoying.
Yes. Yeah. Don't let anyone else beat you to the dishes or beat you to the meal. Just go out of your way to love them through actions, and then remaining consistent in your rhythms. Plan it out. When are you going to do it? Don't forget your Bible on your bed in your apartment, you know, like just have things packed and ready to go and set yourself up for success in that way. And then just remember, stay in touch with community and with your accountability. Find one person. That's maybe my takeaway. Find one person that will just keep you accountable in the next couple weeks. You do a Bible plan, you do text once a day or every other day. That's just like, hey, have you gotten in your word today? Or how are you loving your family this week? So those are my takeaways. And then lastly, maybe goes without saying, but start praying for your family now.
Yeah.
And don't be reactive in prayer, but be proactive right now and just start praying for them individually, specifically, that the Lord would open doors for you in the next coming couple weeks.
Absolutely. Love it. I think as you think about this, just think about the 2 or 3 things that really jumped out at you. Think about what you're going into and really just find a couple ways that you can really be intentional with this time and be intentional in your own faith journey, in your relationships, and in every area. But Megan, as always, appreciate you. Thanks for sharing, and for you listening. I just appreciate all of you, and I hope you guys have a great Christmas. Not sure if we're gonna have another episode before we get through Christmas, so we just hope that you have a great Christmas. We'll see you again soon. But hey, head over to Instagram. We're gonna have some engagement this week, just ways for you to kind of engage with the different things that we've talked about in this episode. So we'd love to hear from you over there. And if you don't subscribe already, make sure you subscribe or follow the podcast so you don't miss any episodes, and share it with a friend. If this was impactful for you, share it with your small group, share it with the community that you're around, or share it on Facebook or wherever that is, or maybe even just share with your parents so that they just know, like, this is the context he's coming in with. But just share it with somebody that you think it'll impact in a positive way. And as always, this is a podcast put on by Northview Church. And so if you're ever in Fargo, we'd love to have you stop by. If you're here for Christmas Eve, come over at 3 and 5. We've got some services. It's going to be a lot of fun. But we love you. Have a great week. We'll see you real soon.
See ya.